Emperor Zarthak stood on the obsidian balcony of his fortress, watching the stars burn cold in the void. His massive form cast shadows that seemed to devour the light around him. Scales black as dead suns covered his body, each one etched with the screams of conquered worlds. His eyes, twin voids of crimson fire, held no warmth, no mercy, no joy. The Draconian Empire stretched across 17 galaxies. Every species that had ever shown happiness in his presence had been reduced to ash. Laughter was forbidden. Smiles meant death. Joy was the greatest crime in his domain. "My lord," came a trembling voice from behind him. General Vexter, his most trusted commander, approached with careful steps. The reptilian being's scales were pale with fear, as they always were when delivering news to the Emperor. "Speak," Zarthak's voice rumbled like dying stars. "The humans, my lord, they refuse to surrender." Zarthak turned slowly. His massive head, crowned with thorns of bone, tilted with interest. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had lasted more than a solar cycle against his armadas. The humans had been fighting for 5. "Impossible, show me their worlds." The holographic display materialized before them. Earth hung in the center, a small blue marble that seemed insignificant compared to the massive dreadnoughts surrounding it. Yet somehow, impossibly, the human fleets continued to engage his forces. "They fight with primitive weapons," Vexter explained. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their ships are built from scavenged metal. They should have fallen in the first battle." Zarthak studied the tactical readouts. Human casualties were catastrophic. Their fleets were outgunned 1,000 to 1. Their worlds burned under orbital bombardment, yet they kept fighting. "What drives them?" he asked. "We don't understand, my lord. They fight for concepts we cannot comprehend. They speak of love, hope, family. They seem to draw strength from these emotions." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Emotions make species weak. Show me these human leaders. I will break them personally." The display shifted to show captured footage from human communications. Zarthak expected to see the desperate ravings of a dying species. Instead, he watched in growing confusion as human commanders spoke to their fleets. "Remember what we're fighting for," said a scarred human admiral. "Remember your children's laughter. Remember the warmth of home. Remember that love conquers all darkness." The crew around the admiral smiled. Even as their ship took devastating hits, even as their friends died around them, they smiled. They fought with a fury that defied logic, protected each other with a devotion that made no tactical sense, and faced certain death with something Zarthak had never seen before. They faced death with hope. "This is impossible," Zarthak snarled. "Happiness weakens, joy makes species soft. I have proven this across 1,000,000 worlds." "Perhaps, my lord, humans are different." The Emperor's rage erupted. His roar shook the fortress to its foundations. "Nothing is different. I will personally crush this pathetic species. Ready my flagship. We end this now." 3 days later, Zarthak's personal armada dropped out of hyperspace above Earth. His flagship, the Void Bringer, was a weapon designed to crack planets. Its shadow fell across the human homeworld like the promise of eternal night. "Humans," his voice boomed across every communication channel on Earth. "I am Emperor Zarthak, destroyer of joy, crusher of hope. You will surrender immediately, or I will turn your world to glass." The response came from an unexpected source. Not the human military, not their political leaders. A small, flickering transmission from the planet's surface. The image that appeared on his screens showed a human child, no more than 7 years old. She had bright eyes and wore strange red clothing. Behind her stood 2 adult humans, clearly her parents, in what appeared to be a modest dwelling decorated with lights and colorful ornaments. "Hello, Mr. Dragon Emperor," the child said, her voice clear and unafraid. "My name is Emma. Today is Christmas, and I wanted to give you a present." Zarthak stared at the screen in complete bewilderment. In 3 millennia, no one had ever offered him a gift. The concept was so foreign it took several seconds for his mind to process what the child had said. "You dare mock me, human spawn." "I'm not mocking you," Emma replied. "My daddy says you're sad because you don't understand Christmas. He says maybe nobody ever taught you how to be happy." The Emperor's massive claws dug furrows in his command throne. "Happiness is weakness. Joy is surrender. I have destroyed 1,000 species who believed otherwise." "But you look lonely." the child continued, tilting her head with the innocent wisdom only children possess. Even dragons need friends. I need nothing, Zarthak roared, especially not from pathetic humans who will be dead within the hour. Emma reached behind her and pulled out a small, wrapped package. The primitive wrapping paper was bright green with red ribbons. She held it up to the camera. This is for you. Mommy helped me make it. It's not much, but it's made with love. What is this love you speak of? The words felt strange on his tongue, like speaking a language he had forgotten. Love is when you care about someone more than yourself, Emma explained with the simple clarity children use to describe the most complex emotions. Love is why my daddy fights to protect us. Love is why mommy sings me to sleep when I'm scared. Love is why I want to give you a present, even though you're supposed to be scary. Zarthak found himself leaning forward, studying this small human who showed no fear of him whatsoever. You should be terrified. I could destroy your entire world with a thought. I know, Emma nodded, but you haven't, and Daddy says that means there's still good in you somewhere. Your father is a fool. Maybe, but he's a fool who loves me, and that makes him strong enough to fight dragons. The Emperor fell silent. Through the tactical displays, he could see human resistance continuing across the planet. Despite his overwhelming presence, despite the hopelessness of their situation, humans kept fighting. They fought for this child. They fought for millions of children like her. Show me this gift, he said finally. Emma held the package closer to the camera. You have to come down here to get it. Christmas presents are supposed to be given in person. You want me to land on your planet? Just in our backyard. We have cookies too. Mommy makes the best chocolate chip cookies in the galaxy. General Vexter stepped forward. My lord, this is clearly a trap. The humans seek to lure you to the surface where they can. Where they can what? Zarthak interrupted. Attack me with cookies, overwhelm me with joy. He studied the tactical readouts again. The coordinates the child had transmitted led to a small residential area far from any military installations. No weapons signatures, no troop concentrations, just a simple human dwelling decorated with colored lights. My lord, surely you're not considering. I am the most powerful being in 17 galaxies, Zarthak said slowly. If I cannot handle one human child and her gift, perhaps I deserve to be destroyed. Against all logic, against 3,000 years of conquest and cruelty, Emperor Zarthak ordered his shuttle prepared. As his massive form descended through Earth's atmosphere, he told himself he was simply curious about human psychology. He would take their pathetic gift, crush their spirits, and continue with the invasion. But deep in his ancient heart, in a place he had thought dead for millennia, something stirred. Something he had spent 3,000 years trying to destroy. Hope. The shuttle landed in the small backyard with surprising gentleness. Zarthak emerged, his massive form towering over the modest human dwelling. The house was indeed decorated with lights that twinkled like earthbound stars. The yard was covered in white snow that crunched under his claws. Emma stood waiting for him, still holding her wrapped gift. She looked impossibly small next to his towering form, but her smile never wavered. You came, she said, and there was genuine joy in her voice. I came to accept your surrender, Zarthak replied, but even he could hear the uncertainty in his voice. We don't surrender on Christmas, Emma's father said, stepping out of the house. The man was clearly terrified, but he stood between the emperor and his family without hesitation. Christmas is about giving, not taking. And you would give your lives for this child. Without question, Emma's mother said, joining her husband. That's what parents do. Zarthak studied these humans who faced certain death with such calm determination. You know I could kill you all with a single breath. Yes, the father said, but you won't. How can you be certain? Emma stepped forward, holding out her gift. Because someone who comes to accept a present instead of just taking it isn't really bad, they're just sad. Zarthak reached down with one massive claw and carefully took the small package. It weighed almost nothing, but somehow felt heavier than any weapon he had ever wielded. Open it, Emma encouraged. Christmas gifts are meant to be unwrapped. With surprising delicacy, the Emperor unwrapped the small package. Inside was a simple ornament made from clay, clearly shaped by a child's hands. It was painted gold and red, with glitter that sparkled in the colored lights. Crude letters spelled out "Best Dragon Ever." Zarthak stared at the ornament for a long moment. I don't understand. Why would you give this to me? Because everyone deserves a Christmas ornament, Emma said simply, and because I think you forgot how to be happy. I am the destroyer of happiness. I have crushed joy across a million worlds. But you're not happy, Emma observed with devastating innocence. Destroying happiness didn't make you happy, it just made you lonely. The words hit him like a physical blow. 3,000 years of conquest, and what did he have to show for it? Empty victories, fearful subjects. A galaxy that trembled at his name but offered him nothing but hatred in return. I have power, he said weakly. Daddy has power too, Emma said. But he uses it to protect people, not hurt them. That's the difference between being strong and being mean. Zarthak looked at the ornament again. No one had ever made anything for him before. Everything he possessed had been taken by force. This small, worthless trinket was the first gift anyone had given him in 3 millennia. What am I supposed to do with this? Hang it on a Christmas tree, Emma's mother said softly. It would look beautiful on a tree. I don't have a tree. We do, Emma said brightly. Want to see? Before he could respond, she had taken his massive claw in her tiny hand and was leading him toward the house. Her parents followed, still terrified but unwilling to abandon their daughter. Inside the modest dwelling, a tree stood in the corner, covered in lights and ornaments and topped with a shining star. It was the most beautiful thing Zarthak had ever seen. Every ornament tells a story, Emma explained, pointing to various decorations. This one is from when I was a baby. This one Daddy made when he was little. This one Grandma gave us before she died. They're just objects, Zarthak said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, they're memories, happy memories. That's what Christmas is about, remembering all the good things and sharing them with people you love. And what if you have no good memories to remember? Emma looked up at him with eyes full of compassion. Then you start making new ones, right now, today. That's what Christmas gifts are for, starting new memories. She pointed to an empty spot on the tree. Your ornament would look perfect right there. Zarthak held the small decoration, studying its crude craftsmanship and genuine sentiment. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and hung it on the tree. The golden surface caught the colored lights and sparkled like a tiny star. It's beautiful, Emma's mother said softly. Now you're part of our Christmas, Emma announced. That makes you family. The word hit him like a plasma blast. Family. People who love each other no matter what, Emma explained. People who protect each other and share good things and forgive mistakes. I have made more than mistakes, Zarthak said quietly. I have committed atrocities beyond counting. But you're here now, Emma said, and you hung your ornament on our tree. That's what matters. For the first time in 3,000 years, Emperor Zarthak felt something he had forgotten existed. Not the cold satisfaction of conquest or the empty pleasure of destruction. Something warm and strange and wonderful. He felt belonging. Mommy, Emma said, tugging on her mother's sleeve, can we make hot chocolate for our dragon friend? I think that would be lovely, her mother said, though her voice still trembled with residual fear. As the family bustled around their modest kitchen, preparing warm drinks and Christmas cookies, Zarthak stood before the tree. His ornament twinkled among the others, no longer alone. Through the house's windows, he could see the lights of his armada filling the sky. Thousands of ships waited for his order to begin the bombardment that would end this world. His generals expected him to return with news of humanity's surrender. But as he watched Emma carefully pour hot chocolate into a mug large enough for his claws to hold, as he heard her parents whisper words of love and protection to each other, as he felt the warmth of the modest home and smelled the sweetness of fresh-baked cookies, Zarthak realized something that shook him to his core. For the first time in 3 millennia, he didn't want to destroy something beautiful. He wanted to protect it. Here, Emma said, offering him the steaming mug. Be careful, it's hot, but it tastes like Christmas. Zarthak accepted the drink with unprecedented gentleness. The liquid was sweet and warm and unlike anything he had ever tasted. It tasted like comfort. It tasted like home. It tasted like happiness. Emma, he said softly, what would you do if someone very powerful wanted to hurt your family? I'd ask them why they were sad, she replied without hesitation. Hurt people, that's what Daddy says. And what if they had hurt many others before? Then they probably needed a hug a really long time ago. The Emperor of 17 galaxies, destroyer of worlds, crusher of joy and hope, found himself kneeling beside a human child who had just offered him the most precious gift in the universe: unconditional love. "Emma," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "I think I have been sad for a very long time." She smiled and without fear wrapped her small arms around his massive neck. "That's okay. Christmas is about new beginnings. You don't have to be sad anymore." As he felt the child's embrace, as he tasted happiness for the first time in millennia, as he watched her parents smile at their daughter's fearless compassion, Zarthak made a decision that would change the fate of galaxies. He would not destroy this world. Instead, he would learn what this family had to teach him. He would learn how to be happy. The communication from the Void Bringer crackled with urgent static. General Vexter's voice carried barely contained panic as he addressed his missing emperor. "Lord Zarthak, please respond. The fleet awaits your orders. Shall we begin the bombardment?" Zarthak looked down at the primitive communication device Emma's father had given him. Such crude technology, yet it connected him to his armada hanging in the darkness above. His massive claw hesitated over the response button. "Tell them," Emma said quietly, "that you're learning about Christmas." They would not understand. "Then teach them," her father said, "the way Emma taught you." It had been 3 days since Zarthak had first descended to Earth. 3 days of the most bewildering experiences of his long existence. He had learned that human children needed 8 hours of sleep, that cookies tasted better when shared, and that stories told before bedtime could chase away nightmares. He had also learned that Emma was dying. The knowledge had come accidentally, overheard in whispered conversations between her parents when they thought he was resting in their garden. Leukemia, they called it, a disease that attacked the very blood in her veins. Human medicine could slow it but not stop it. The child who had given him his first gift, who had taught him the meaning of Christmas, would not live to see many more. "My lord," Vexter's voice grew more insistent through the communication device. Zarthak pressed the response button. "I am," studying the humans, continue to hold position. "Study them, my lord, for what purpose?" How could he explain that he was learning the names of Christmas carols, that he had helped Emma's mother prepare breakfast, that he had listened to Emma read stories about reindeer and snowmen and the magic of Christmas morning? "They possess weapons we did not anticipate," he said finally. "What kind of weapons, my lord?" Zarthak looked through the kitchen window where Emma sat at the table, coloring a picture of a dragon wearing a Santa hat. She hummed as she worked, completely absorbed in her art. "Psychological weapons," he replied. "I need more time to understand them." After closing the communication, he found Emma showing her drawing to her parents. "Look," she said proudly, "it's Emperor Zarthak, but he's happy now." The crayon dragon in the picture wore a red Santa hat and had a wide smile. Beneath it, in careful child's handwriting, were the words, "My friend the dragon." "It's wonderful, sweetheart," her mother said, but Zarthak could hear the sadness hidden in her voice. "Are you tired, Emma?" her father asked gently. She nodded, and Zarthak noticed how pale she looked, how slowly she moved. The disease was progressing despite the treatments. "Can Zarthak read me a story?" she asked. "He has the best voice for stories." Her parents exchanged glances. Over the past 3 days, they had watched in amazement as their daughter fearlessly befriended the most dangerous being in the galaxy. More incredible still, they had watched him respond with growing gentleness. "If he doesn't mind," her mother said. Zarthak found himself nodding. Reading bedtime stories had become part of his routine here, though he still didn't fully understand why humans told tales to help children sleep. In Emma's small bedroom, surrounded by toys and books and pictures drawn in crayon, Zarthak settled his massive form as carefully as possible. Emma climbed into her bed and pulled her favorite book from the nightstand. "Tonight, can you read about the Christmas dragon?" she asked. Zarthak frowned. "I know no tales of Christmas dragons." "That's because I made it up," Emma said with a mischievous smile. "But I think you'd tell it better than me." "You want me to create a story?" "Uh-huh, about a dragon who forgot how to be happy, but then remembered on Christmas." Zarthak stared at her for a moment, then began to speak in his deep, rumbling voice. Once upon a time, there was a dragon who ruled the stars. He had great power and commanded vast fleets, but his heart was cold as the void between galaxies. Emma snuggled deeper into her blankets, her eyes bright despite her exhaustion. The dragon believed that happiness made creatures weak, so he destroyed joy wherever he found it. For thousands of years, he conquered and crushed and burned, until there was no laughter left in his empire. But then what happened? Emma prompted softly. Then, on a winter day on a small blue planet, the dragon met a little girl who was not afraid of him. She gave him a gift, not because she had to, not because she feared him, but because she saw that he was lonely. What was the gift? The most precious gift in the universe, Zarthak said quietly. Love without condition, friendship without fear, the chance to be more than a destroyer. Emma's eyes were growing heavy, but she fought sleep to hear the end. And did the dragon learn to be happy? Zarthak looked at this brave child who had given him so much and would soon be taken by an enemy he couldn't fight. His voice grew softer. The dragon learned that happiness is not weakness. It is the strongest force in the universe. Stronger than fear, stronger than anger, stronger even than death, because love creates memories that last forever. Emma smiled sleepily. I like that story. Will you remember it when I'm gone? The words hit him like a supernova. Emma. It's okay, she whispered. Mommy and Daddy think I don't know, but I do. The doctors said maybe a few more months. But that's okay because I got to meet a real dragon, and I got to give him his first Christmas present. That's pretty special. Zarthak felt something wet on his face. He touched his cheek in confusion and found tears, the first tears he had shed in 3 millennia. Don't cry, Emma said gently. When people love each other, they never really go away. They live in here. She tapped her chest. In your heart, that's what Christmas teaches us. I don't want you to go, Zarthak whispered, the confession torn from his ancient soul. I don't want to either, but that's what makes the time we have special. Every day is a gift. Emma reached out and touched one of his massive claws. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll remember how to be happy, even after I'm gone. Promise me you'll help other people learn too. Zarthak nodded, unable to speak. And promise me you'll hang my ornament on a tree every Christmas, so I can be part of the celebration even when I'm not here. I promise, he managed to say. Emma smiled and closed her eyes. Good, now I can sleep. Tomorrow we're going to bake cookies for your fleet, remember? Mommy says even scary space dragons probably like chocolate chip cookies. As Emma drifted off to sleep, Zarthak sat in the darkness of her room, processing emotions he had never expected to feel. Love, grief, hope, fear of loss. The complex tapestry of feelings that made life beautiful and terrible and precious. The next morning brought urgent communications from his fleet. His generals were growing restless. Other draconian forces across the galaxy were demanding explanations for the delay in conquering Earth. My lord, General Vexter's image flickered on the primitive human communication device. High Command is questioning your strategy. They want to know why we have not already claimed this world. Zarthak stood in Emma's backyard, watching her build a snowman with her father despite her obvious exhaustion. She insisted the snowman needed a warrior's helmet made from a bucket and stick arms for holding a sword. Tell High Command I have discovered a new form of warfare, he said. What form, my lord? Conquest of the heart rather than conquest of the world. I don't understand. Zarthak watched Emma laugh as her snowman warrior toppled over. She immediately began rebuilding it, determined to create her vision. General, in 3,000 years of conquest, how many species have willingly joined our empire? None, my lord, they all resist until crushed. And how many have served us out of loyalty rather than fear? Again, none, my lord, fear is more reliable than loyalty. Is it? Zarthak asked. A slave fights because he must, a believer fights because he chooses to. Which do you think is stronger? My lord, are you suggesting we attempt to convert the humans rather than conquer them? Zarthak considered this. I am suggesting that perhaps there are forms of strength we have never explored. That afternoon, Emma convinced her parents to let her bake cookies for Tsar's space friends. Despite her weakening condition, she insisted on measuring ingredients herself, wanting each cookie to be made with love. Dragons probably don't get cookies very often, she explained as she stirred chocolate chips into the dough. They'll be so surprised. Emma, her mother said gently, Zarthak's friends might not be as nice as he is. They will be once they taste these cookies. Nobody can be mean when they're eating good cookies. It's impossible. Zarthak found himself marveling at her absolute faith in the power of kindness. She truly believed that love could transform anyone, even his battle-hardened generals who had spent centuries perfecting the art of destruction. "Would you like to meet them?" he asked. Emma's eyes lit up. "Really? I could meet real space dragons." "They are not all dragons. Some are reptilian, some insectoid, some crystalline. All are warriors." "That's okay. Warriors need friends too." Against every military protocol he had ever established, Zarthak arranged for a small delegation to join him on the planet's surface. General Vexter and 2 other commanders descended in a shuttle, prepared for anything except what they found. Their emperor, the destroyer of worlds, sat at a small human table, helping a dying child decorate cookies with colored frosting. "My lord," Vexter's voice came out as a strangled whisper. "General, I would like you to meet Emma. Emma, these are my friends from the fleet." Emma looked up from her cookie decorating and smiled brightly at the 3 imposing alien warriors. "Hi, I made cookies for you. Do you like chocolate chips?" The generals stared in complete bewilderment as this tiny human offered them baked goods with genuine enthusiasm. "She's not afraid of us," Commander Thexel observed in amazement. "Why would I be afraid?" Emma asked. "You're Tsar's friends, which means you're my friends too. Friends aren't scary." She held up a cookie decorated to look like a smiling alien face. "This one looks like you," she told Vexter. "See, I gave it a happy smile." The general took the cookie with hands that had held weapons of mass destruction, but trembled when receiving a gift from a child. "Taste it," Emma encouraged. "It's made with love, that's the secret ingredient." Vexter bit into the cookie and his expression shifted from confusion to wonder. "It's warm, sweet. I have never tasted anything like it." "That's because nobody ever made you cookies before," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Making food for people is how humans show they care." Commander Thexel, a crystalline being who fed on mineral solutions, found himself accepting a cookie despite having no ability to digest organic matter. The gesture itself somehow nourished something in him he didn't know existed. "Why do you show kindness to those who could destroy you?" Commander Shevhin asked. Emma tilted her head, considering the question with the seriousness only children could bring to profound philosophical inquiries. "Because that's what Christmas teaches us. Love isn't about whether someone deserves it. Love is about choosing to give it anyway." She looked at each of the imposing alien warriors in turn. "Besides, if you destroy everything, you'll be really lonely, and lonely is the saddest thing you can be." Over the following hours, the 3 generals experienced something unprecedented in their military careers. They played human games. They listened to Christmas carols. They helped Emma's father repair a broken ornament on the Christmas tree. Most shocking of all, they found themselves enjoying it. "This is highly irregular," Vexter confided to Zarthak as they stood outside while Emma napped. "Yes," Zarthak agreed, "and yet when did you last see warriors smile?" Vexter considered this. In the Draconian Empire, showing happiness was seen as a sign of weakness. Soldiers were expected to be grim, efficient, emotionless. "Never, my lord. They seem stronger to me now, more alive." "But my lord, if we don't conquer this world, High Command will demand explanations." Zarthak looked through the window at Emma, who even in sleep fought her disease with quiet courage. "Then perhaps it's time High Command learned what I have learned, that some things are worth more than conquest." "My lords." "General, summon the full fleet command staff. Tell them their emperor requires their immediate presence on the surface." "All of them, my lord. That's over 200 officers." "All of them, and tell them to prepare for extended surface operations." "How extended, my lord?" Zarthak smiled, an expression that would have terrified his subordinates just days ago, but now seemed strangely warm. "Until Christmas, General. They're going to learn about Christmas." The sight greeting High Admiral Mordek as his shuttle touched down on Earth defied every military protocol in the Draconian Empire. 200 of their most feared officers sat in circles on the ground around primitive cooking fires, listening to human children sing songs about peace and goodwill. General Vexter approached the shuttle as Mordek emerged, his scarred face showing an expression the High Admiral had never seen before: contentment. "General," Mordek's voice carried the authority of someone who had personally overseen the destruction of 47 worlds. "Explain this madness immediately." "High Admiral, I would like you to meet my friend Sarah," Vexter said, gesturing to a human child of perhaps 6 years who stood beside him holding a paper cup filled with hot cocoa. "Sarah, this is High Admiral Mordek." The child looked up at the imposing figure who commanded respect across 17 galaxies and smiled. "Hi, do you want some hot chocolate? My mom made extra because Vex said more of his friends were coming." Mordek stared at the small human in complete bewilderment. Did that creature just offer me refreshment?" "Her name is Sarah," Vexter said gently. "And yes, she's offering you hot chocolate because she thinks you might be cold." "I am never cold. My environmental suit regulates." "It's not about being cold on the outside," Sarah interrupted with the innocent wisdom only children possessed. "It's about being cold on the inside. Hot chocolate helps with that too." Before Mordek could process this statement, Emperor Zarthak approached. The High Admiral immediately snapped to attention, but paused when he saw his supreme leader carrying a small human child who was clearly ill. "My lord," Mordek began carefully, "I have come as ordered to assess the situation and determine why this conquest is proceeding so unusually." "Emma wanted to meet you," Zarthak said quietly. "Emma, this is High Admiral Mordek, one of my most trusted commanders." Emma lifted her head from Zarthak's shoulder. Despite her obvious exhaustion, her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "You're even bigger than Zar. Are you a good guy or a bad guy?" The question, asked with such direct innocence, seemed to freeze Mordek entirely. What kind of question is that?" "An important one," Emma said seriously. "Bad guys hurt people because they're angry. Good guys protect people because they love them. Which one are you?" Mordek looked to his emperor for guidance, but Zarthak simply waited, as curious as Emma to hear the answer. "I have been a warrior for 800 years, Mordek said slowly. "I have conquered worlds and crushed rebellions. I have been called many things, but never good." "That's because nobody ever asked you to be good before," Emma said with devastating simplicity. "But it's not too late. You can choose to be good starting right now." "How would one be good?" Emma brightened despite her weakness. "Oh, that's easy. You help people instead of hurting them. You share things instead of taking them. And you give hugs instead of being scary." "Hugs? Like this," Emma said, reaching out from Zarthak's arms to embrace the massive alien warrior. For a moment, Mordek stood frozen as a dying human child wrapped her thin arms around his armored neck. Then, slowly, carefully, he returned the embrace with hands that had signed death warrants for billions. "See," Emma whispered, "you're already being good." Over the following days, High Admiral Mordek found himself in increasingly surreal situations. He helped human children build snowmen. He listened to stories about reindeer and elves. He learned to sing Christmas carols in his deep, rumbling voice. Most shocking of all, he discovered he was happy. "This is unprecedented," he confided to Zarthak as they stood watch over a group of draconian officers who were engaged in a snowball fight with human children. "Our warriors are laughing. They're playing. They're forming emotional attachments to the native population." "And how do you assess their combat readiness?" Zarthak asked. Mordek considered this carefully. "Paradoxically, my lord, I believe they're stronger. They fight now not from anger or fear, but from love. They have something to protect rather than something to destroy." "Show me." Zarthak arranged a combat simulation using draconian training equipment. The exercise pitted teams of officers against holographic enemies in a scenario designed to test tactical thinking and battlefield effectiveness. The results were extraordinary. Officers who had trained together for centuries now coordinated with an intuitive understanding that transcended mere military discipline. They protected each other with fierce devotion, fought with creative strategies born from hope rather than desperation, and displayed a level of unit cohesion that surpassed anything in their military records. "They fight as if they have something worth living for," Mordek observed in wonder. "Because they do," Zarthak replied. "They fight for the children who gave them cookies, for the families who welcomed them without fear, for the chance to build something beautiful instead of destroying it." but their unprecedented experiment was about to face its greatest test. The communication arrived during Emma's afternoon nap, crackling across subspace with the authority of the Draconian High Council itself. "Emperor Zarthak," came the cold voice of Supreme Chancellor Vexmer, "your extended delay in conquering the human homeworld has become a matter of concern for the Council. You will complete the subjugation immediately or face replacement." Zarthak stood in the modest human living room where Emma slept on the couch, wrapped in blankets her mother had tucked around her with infinite care. The Christmas tree twinkled softly in the corner, his ornament hanging among the others like a symbol of belonging. "Chancellor," he replied carefully, "the humans possess unique qualities that require specialized handling." What qualities could possibly justify such delay? They are a primitive species with inferior technology. Crush them and move on to the next target. They possess something we have never encountered before. They possess the ability to transform enemies into allies through kindness. "Kindness?" The Chancellor's voice dripped with disgust. "You sound as though you've been contaminated by their weakness. Is it weakness that allows their parents to face certain death to protect their children? Is it weakness that enables their soldiers to fight impossible odds without hope of victory? Is it weakness that gives them the courage to offer friendship to beings who could destroy them?" "Yes," Vexmer snapped. "Emotional attachment makes species vulnerable. It divides their focus and clouds their judgment. This is why the Draconian Empire has endured for millennia while others fall." "And yet," Zarthak said quietly, "in 3,000 years of conquest, how many species have chosen to join us rather than resist?" "Irrelevant. Fear is more reliable than loyalty." "Is it? Tell me, Chancellor, when did you last feel joy? When did you last experience the satisfaction of creating something rather than destroying it? When did you last have something worth dying for rather than something to kill for?" The silence stretched across the subspace link for a long moment. "You have been compromised," Vexmer said finally. "The Council hereby relieves you of command. Admiral Thexgar will arrive with the cleansing fleet in 72 hours to complete the conquest and deal with your condition." The communication ended, leaving Zarthak standing in the peaceful human home while his empire prepared to destroy everything he had learned to love. Emma stirred on the couch, awakened by the sound of voices. "Zar, what's wrong?" He knelt beside her, his massive form gentle despite the turmoil in his ancient heart. "Emma, my people are coming. They don't understand what I've learned here. They want to hurt your world." Emma struggled to sit up, her illness making even small movements difficult. "Can't you stop them?" "Not alone. Admiral Thexgar commands the largest fleet in our empire. Even with my forces, we would be outnumbered 10-1. "But you have to try," Emma said with quiet determination. "That's what good guys do. They try even when it's scary." "I could be killed. My officers could be destroyed. We might not be able to save your world." Emma reached for his massive claw and held it in her small hands. "Zar, do you remember the story you told me about the Christmas dragon?" "Yes. You said love is stronger than anything, even death. Do you believe that?" Zarthak looked at this brave child who faced her own death with such courage, who had given love freely to beings who could have destroyed her, who had taught an empire of warriors the meaning of hope. "Yes," he said, "I believe that." "Then you already know what to do." That evening, Zarthak called his officers together. 200 of the Draconian Empire's most feared warriors gathered in a local school gymnasium, sitting on the floor while human children performed a Christmas play. As they watched a story of peace and redemption unfold on a makeshift stage, Zarthak stood before his assembled forces. "Tomorrow," he announced, "Admiral Thexgar arrives with orders to destroy this world and everyone on it, including the children you have befriended, including the families who have welcomed you, including everything we have learned to love." The officers stirred, hands moving instinctively to weapons, faces hardening with battle resolve. "We have a choice," Zarthak continued. "We can return to our ships, follow orders, and watch everything beautiful burn, or we can fight for something greater than conquest." General Vexter stood. "My lord, what are you proposing?" "I'm proposing we defend this world. I'm proposing we show the Draconian Empire that there is strength in love, power in protection, victory in creation rather than destruction." "That would make us traitors to the Empire," Commander Shevhin pointed out. Yes, Zarthak agreed. It would also make us heroes to our own souls. High Admiral Mordek rose slowly. My Emperor, I have served the Empire faithfully for 8 centuries. I have followed every order, crushed every rebellion, destroyed every world marked for conquest. He paused, looking at the human children on stage, singing about peace and love. But I have never had a child make me cookies. I have never been hugged without fear. I have never felt the warmth of belonging to something greater than destruction. He drew his ceremonial sword and laid it at Zarthak's feet. I pledge my service not to the Empire, but to something better. I pledge my service to love. One by one, the other officers followed suit. Weapons that had carved apart star systems were laid down in service to a dying human child's dream of peace. Emma, watching from her father's arms, clapped weakly as 200 alien warriors knelt in a school gymnasium and chose love over conquest. The next day, Admiral Thexgar's cleansing fleet dropped out of hyperspace expecting to find a conquered world. Instead, they found Zarthak's armada arrayed in defensive positions around Earth, weapons powered and shields raised. Emperor Zarthak, came Thexgar's transmission. Stand down immediately and surrender for council judgment. Admiral, Zarthak replied from his flagship's bridge, where Emma sat in a specially constructed chair beside his command throne, too weak now to stand but determined to witness the battle for her world's future. I offer you the same choice these humans offered me. You can choose destruction, or you can choose to learn. Learn what? Learn that love is not weakness. Learn that joy is not surrender. Learn that some things are worth more than conquest. Sentimental nonsense. All units open fire. The space around Earth erupted in brilliant explosions as the two fleets engaged. But this was unlike any battle in Draconian history. Zarthak's forces fought not with the cold efficiency of professional soldiers, but with the fierce desperation of beings protecting everything they had learned to love. They fought for children who had given them cookies. They fought for families who had welcomed them without fear. They fought for the chance to build a better universe. On the surface, humans watched through telescopes and broadcasting stations as their former conquerors battled their own empire in the heavens above. Explosions lit up the night sky like deadly fireworks, each flash representing the clash between two fundamentally different visions of existence. Are we going to win? Emma whispered from her chair on the bridge, her small hand resting on Zarthak's massive claw. I don't know, he admitted, but we're going to try. That's what love does, it tries even against impossible odds. The battle raged for 18 hours. Zarthak's forces, though outnumbered, fought with tactical brilliance born from their new understanding of cooperation and sacrifice. They covered each other's retreats, shared resources without hesitation, and displayed a unit cohesion that their rigid military training had never achieved. But they were still outnumbered 10-1. As Zarthak's flagship took devastating hits, as his fleet was slowly overwhelmed by superior numbers, Emma struggled to sit up in her chair. Zar, she said weakly, I want to talk to them. Emma, you're too weak. Please, she whispered, let me try. Against every tactical consideration, Zarthak opened a communication channel that broadcast across both fleets. Emma's image appeared on screens throughout the cleansing fleet, a small, dying human child sitting beside the Emperor, who had chosen to betray his own empire for her sake. Hello, she said, her voice barely audible but somehow carrying across the vastness of space. My name is Emma. I'm the little girl who gave Emperor Zarthak his first Christmas present. Across Admiral Thexgar's fleet, alien warriors found themselves listening to a human child who spoke as weapons fired around her. I know you're angry at him for protecting us instead of conquering us, but he's not a traitor. He's a student. He's learning what love means, just like we all have to learn. Ignore the human propaganda, Admiral Thexgar ordered his fleet. Continue firing. But Emma wasn't finished. I'm dying, she continued with heartbreaking simplicity. My body is sick and the doctors can't fix it, but I'm not sad because I got to teach the scariest dragon in the galaxy how to be happy. Her words somehow cut through the chaos of battle, creating moments of hesitation among crews who had never heard an enemy speak of happiness in the face of death. That's what Christmas teaches us, Emma said. Love is the strongest force in the universe, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Not because it always wins, but because it's always worth fighting for. She looked directly into the camera, and somehow it seemed as if she was speaking to each individual warrior across both fleets. You can choose to destroy everything beautiful. You can choose to be afraid of love because it might hurt, or you can choose to be brave enough to care about something more than victory. Admiral Thexgar's voice crackled across his fleet's communication channels. All units, ignore the propaganda and focus fire on. Admiral, the interruption came from his own flagship's tactical officer. Sir, I request permission to stand down. Permission denied. Continue firing. Admiral, came another voice from a different ship. This is Commander Velthar. I also request permission to stand down. Across the cleansing fleet, individual voices began to speak up. Officers who had served faithfully for centuries found themselves questioning orders for the first time. Admiral, came the voice of Captain Morthal from the fleet's second-largest dreadnought. I've been monitoring communications from Zarthak's forces. Sir, our own warriors are. They're happy. They're fighting not from duty or fear, but from love. I've never seen anything like it. Happiness is weakness, Thexgar snarled. Then why are they fighting so well? Captain Morthal asked quietly. On Earth's surface, humans gathered around communication devices and television screens, watching their fate decided in the space above. Parents held their children close as they witnessed a galactic empire tear itself apart over the question of whether love was strength or weakness. Emma's parents stood beside Zarthak on his flagship's bridge, watching their daughter speak words that somehow reached across the hostility of ages. Emma, her mother whispered, "What are you doing?" "Giving them a Christmas present," Emma replied softly. "The same one I gave Zar, a chance to choose love." Her words continued to broadcast across both fleets. "I know you're scared. Love is scary because it means you might lose something precious, but that's what makes it brave. That's what makes it strong." Admiral Thexgar's fleet began to waver. Individual ships stopped firing, their crews overwhelmed by something they had never encountered before. A child's absolute faith in the power of love to transform enemies into friends. "All ships," Thexgar's voice grew desperate. "I order you to resume firing immediately." "Admiral," came the quiet voice of his own tactical officer. "Sir, with respect." "No." "What did you say?" "No, sir. I will not fire on beings who fight for love. I will not destroy a child who offers friendship to her enemies. I will not be part of an empire that considers compassion a weakness." Across the fleet, similar declarations rang out. One by one, ships powered down their weapons. One by one, warriors who had spent their lives following orders chose instead to follow their hearts. Admiral Thexgar found himself commanding a fleet that refused to fight. Emma's image flickered on the communication screens one last time. "You don't have to be angry anymore," she told them. "You don't have to be alone anymore. Christmas teaches us that there's always room for one more person at the table. There's always room for one more ornament on the tree." She held up the simple clay ornament she had made for Zarthak. "Every ornament tells a story. Every person has a chance to write a new story. You can write yours starting today." Her strength finally failed her, and she collapsed back into her chair. But her message had reached its target. Admiral Thexgar stood alone on his flagship's bridge as his entire fleet stood down. Around him, his officers watched expectantly, waiting to see if their commander could find the courage to choose love over conquest. For a long moment, he stood silent. Then, slowly, he activated his communication system. "This is Admiral Thexgar to all ships, both fleets. Cease fire immediately." The space around Earth fell silent, except for the crackling of cooling weapon systems and the soft hum of life support. "Emperor Zarthak," Thexgar continued, his voice heavy with 3 centuries of military conditioning being overturned by a child's simple faith. I would like to learn about Christmas." Emma, barely conscious but somehow still aware, smiled one last time. She died 3 days later, on Christmas morning, surrounded by her family and 200 alien warriors who had learned to love her. Her funeral was attended by representatives from across 17 galaxies. Former enemies wept together as they laid flowers on the grave of a child who had taught them that love was stronger than fear, that joy was braver than anger, that some gifts could change the course of empires. Zarthak spoke at her funeral, his massive form standing before a crowd of beings who had traveled light years to pay respect to a little girl who had given the universe its first lesson in Christmas. "Emma taught us that love is not weakness," he said, his voice carrying across the cemetery and to broadcast stations throughout known space. "Love is the strongest force in existence because it alone can transform enemies into family, hatred into hope, conquest into creation." He held up the simple clay ornament, now the most precious artifact in his possession. "She made this for me because she saw past what I was to what I could become. Today I make a promise to her memory and to all who hear this message. The Draconian Empire is no more. In its place, we create something new, an alliance built not on fear but on love, not on conquest but on cooperation, not on the destruction of differences but on the celebration of them." Admiral Thexgar stepped forward. "And what shall we call this alliance?" Zarthak looked at Emma's ornament, sparkling in the winter sunlight like a tiny star. "We shall call it the Christmas Coalition, because Emma taught us that every day can be Christmas if we choose to give the gift of love." Years passed. The Christmas Coalition grew to encompass thousands of worlds, all united by the simple principle that love was stronger than fear. Former enemies became allies, warriors became teachers, and across the galaxy, children grew up learning the story of a little girl who had taught dragons how to be happy. Every Christmas, on every world in the Coalition, families gathered to decorate trees with ornaments that told their stories. And on every tree, there was always one special ornament, a simple clay decoration that sparkled with the memory of a child who had changed the universe with nothing more than kindness and unconditional love. Emma had kept her promise. She lived on in the hearts of all who had learned her lesson, that Christmas was not about the gifts we receive, but about the love we choose to give. And in the great tree that grew in the center of the Coalition's capital city, Zarthak's ornament hung surrounded by thousands of others, each one representing a life touched by Emma's gift of love. The little girl who had given a dragon emperor his first Christmas present had given the galaxy something far greater, the gift of hope, the courage to choose love over fear, and the knowledge that some victories are worth more than all the conquests in the universe. The Dragon Emperor had found his greatest triumph not in the destruction of enemies, but in the creation of family. And every Christmas morning, as he hung Emma's ornament on his tree, he remembered the promise he had made to a dying child, to choose happiness, to spread love, and to never forget that the smallest gifts can create the greatest changes. Christmas had taught him the most important truth in the universe. Love always wins, not because it conquers, but because it transforms. And transformation, he had learned, was the most powerful force of all.